Let's turn now to the crisis in America's cities right now, and New York City in particular, which is back in the headlines as the state is overrun by migrants who have arrived as a result of Joe Biden's open border policies. For the latest on this, and also what's going on with their trash situation, I'm joined by New York City Councilor Joe Borelli. Joe, thank you so much for coming on the U.S. Report. A lot going on around America and around the world, but I want to talk to you about a specific story with the New York Post, which has exposed that the poorest neighborhoods in the 5 boroughs of New York are now being flooded by migrants who have been brought over and welcomed in by the Biden administration. It's causing huge quality of life issues. Tell us what this means for New Yorkers.
Well, it means they're subjugated to roving packs of migrants on mopeds committing countless crimes day in and day out. These are people who, came in drips and drabs in the beginning, but now there are over 65,000 in our care in our city. And yes, I mean, a lot of these camps and hotels are located in some of the poorer communities. It's in these poorer communities where there were vacant hotel rooms, vacant buildings that can be converted into shelter, et cetera. So it's not surprising that there's a concentration there. The surprise, though, is that some of the politicians who represent these communities have been some of the most vocal, woke leftists who have been demanding we remain a sanctuary city and demanding we give more, not less, to these migrants. And now they're sort of backtracking as their own constituents have to deal with the backlash and the problems associated with just massive homeless shelters on every corner.
Yeah, and this is a question that I have then is, as people in these areas which are economically disadvantaged, they're very aspirational, people are working hard trying to make a better life for themselves and their families, yet what is their political reaction to their leaders, their elected officials, who then come and foist all these people in their neighborhood, who then don't have to pay rent, who get free food and get free benefits and so on, when all of the locals are struggling and working hard to provide for their families?
Well, they're very frustrated. I mean, and they're very frustrated at the sort of far left of the Democratic Party. And by the way, so many of these people in these communities are migrants, immigrants really themselves, who have come here at times past legally, the proper channels, or they're awaiting their citizenship, and they have a U.S. green card, and they're doing things the right way. So they are under a tremendous amount of pressure in competition for resources in these communities. And I think we're seeing them start to turn on some of the far left politicians that represent these communities. We actually almost won our state governorship last time with Lee Zeldin losing by only 6 points, which in New York state history, that has not happened any time in the recent past.
Well, yeah, we covered that very extensively on the U.S. Report, and Kathy Hochul, she had quite a scare there because, New York should be running as a Democrat state. But as the tide turns on this support and on the issue of migrants as well as just the general economy, I'm hearing that senior Democrats are fearing that the traditionally blue New York might turn red. There's been a top New York Democrat who says that he believes New York is actually a battleground state. Do you agree with that assessment?
I do, and maybe not for the statewide U.S. Senate seat. That's kind of an uphill battle against an incumbent. But there are a number of House of Representatives seats on Long Island and in the Hudson Valley, which have become the real battleground for Congress. The internal polling has those incumbent Democrats even losing substantially to their Republican counterparts. And all this is sort of as a result, not just of Kathy Hochul, not just of the Democratic failures in New York, but it's also of the burden of Joe Biden, this anchor of a president who is just weighing down so many people in swing districts around the state.
And with that Biden effect, then, you know that once you get sort of north of, Dutchess County, Columbia County, New York State turns quite Republican. Is there enough votes in it for Donald Trump in some of these marginal areas of New York City and possibly Long Island in the suburbs that could then bring, I think it's 28 electoral votes over into the Republican camp?
It's possible. And that's the strategy. The strategy for New York has always been for Republicans to win the upstate portions significantly, getting 60 to 70%, to lose the city, which unfortunately we most likely will. But it's these competitive suburban counties where the Republican Party has been focused on, and even where the Democratic Party has been forced to be focused on. They just lost an incumbent member, Jamal Bowman, who was a radical far left member. and they elected a moderate Democrat, a guy I served with in the state legislature. You know, he might be a Democrat, but he's a decent human being. So we are seeing these pushbacks against Democrats in these very, very, very critical districts. If Hakeem Jeffries wants to be the Speaker of the House and not the minority leader, he has to really do a good job winning some seats in his home state. I don't think that happens with Kathy Hochul and the migrants and all the crisis here. And I don't think this happens, any chance with Joe Biden on top of the ticket.
Well, it's a great reminder that, there's so much at stake: downplay, control of the Senate, control of the House, and all of these other offices. But before I let you go, I also have to talk to you about this as a fellow New Yorker. And despite all this chaos, Mayor Eric Adams, he's now found the time to reveal that there's a new bin regime in New York. Here he is a couple of days ago. Now, what's amazing about this is apparently the city spent something like $4 million with McKinsey to figure out how to have trash bins. Tell us about this.
Well, look, this is not really a totally bad development. We have to pay consultants to figure some stuff out because our sanitation department is larger than the Army of the Republic of Ireland. So it is a pretty big system that we have to manage. And frankly, we do have a trash problem and a rat problem. And the reason we have these problems is because a lot of New Yorkers simply can't figure out how to put their trash in a proper bin. So I'm not really opposed to this. I'm opposed to the cost of this. Unfortunately, This is going to burden homeowners with a $45 pail that they have to buy 3 of. If it was free, like many municipalities around the country, and you pay for the service as part of your property taxes, I wouldn't have any problem with it whatsoever. I just don't want the extra cost. But we do have a rat problem, and this will hopefully solve that.
Fair enough, but you know what? I think $4 million for McKinsey, they could have asked Oscar the Grouch and gotten that advice for free. Thank you so much, Joe Borelli.